So we will look at, the different types of biases now, and then I will ask all of you a question. See, we have people coming from different countries, different backgrounds, so we can ask, people as to what biases do they feel the most. But let's learn the whole list first. We have about five here, and we all know that there are more biases in this world. But central tendency is one that interviewers, especially pertaining to this session when we are reviewing the answers, people choose central tendency. Is everybody able to concentrate on what's happening? Sorry, because some of us are not on videos. I'm asking this question. But this is, now about the interviewing and review. So that's why I'm asking. Am I audible to all of you?
Yep.
Cool. So, what is a central tendency? That if you have a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, many times lot of people will try to give 3, sit on the center. But why? Because sometimes we don't know exactly how to prove 4 and 5. Is this person good enough? And that's because the questions are either generic or we are not probed, like how we say, okay, what was your role exactly? What did you do? Do you think that was the right thing to do? What numbers did you achieve? What do you think you could have done more? Did you ask for help? So when you ask the probing questions, you exactly know whether the person deserves 4 and 5 or does the person look at 1 and 2 only. But when we don't do that, now when we don't ask the BEI, when we don't look at the competency based approach, but we have like decided 10 set of questions that we keep asking again and again to multiple people, um, this is what happens, because then we also hear those generic answers, and many of us tend to say at least out of 10 questions, 7, 8 go for 3. But then it's very difficult for the next round to do justice to that person. So central tendency can become very difficult, and we have to make sure that we understand the competency well. So suppose if I say ownership, what does for that role, okay? So suppose if somebody is an individual contributor, fresher, what does ownership, how does it look at its best? In that role, when will I give a person 5? I can't expect that person to do something that a CEO will do, or take, enough effort to talk to the client and talk to the manager. New person, but what is the ownership? Proactively asking questions, completing the task every day, not leaving the emails unanswered. So for a fresher, what is ownership at 5? And what is ownership at 1? That bar I need to be clear of in my head. So many times preparation during the BI interviews is also important. Am I making sense, everybody? That we need to think about how does this competency look the best in this role? And then we can come backwards saying, is it at 5 or am I hearing a 4? What are the desirable behaviors at 5? That the person does this, person does this, person does this. And then I can say, okay, I'm hearing in the star answers, I'm hearing at least out of 5, I'm hearing 3 behaviors, 4 behaviors. If I'm hearing nothing, then the person is on the left hand side, 1 or 2. So that clarity every interviewer needs to have. And you can also go back to the organization and make sure that all the interviewing people kind of start thinking like that. That's when that central tendency will go away. Take help from HR if you need to look at what are the best 5 behaviors in individual contributors, in people managers, in managers of managers. Based on the seniority, how does ownership look? One, competency, but it can look different. The observable behaviors can be different. And if we know that best behavior, then we can come backwards to rate the person in the right way. The second one is horn or halo effect. So, halo, as we all know, is that light behind the angels and the gods. So, that
Yeah.
can be replicated by somebody being a gold medalist, somebody coming from the top Ivy League colleges, somebody coming from fantastic background, or somebody having a great name of employers on the list, some of the top Fortune 500 companies, and we feel very, very enamored by that one achievement, and automatically the questions become easy. Possible in the interview? Can it happen? Yes, though,
Yes.
maybe everybody.
Yes. No.
Huh?
Yes.
But we have to look at the person's past, in past 3 to 6 months. What have you done? What role have you applied for? And what is it that I need to know? Which competencies are you good at? So I need to still know the top five competencies this role requires, core plus others. And I need to know if the person sitting here has good background. So I'm actually expecting better. I'm expecting the behaviors that go with five because the person comes from a good background. I don't need to be easy on him or her. Be normal. Yeah. Similarly with horn effect. Um, the resume looks nice, everything is good, but one little thing on the resume, and he said, "Oh God, I know people from this company are like this attitude. They come with a lot of baggage." Or somebody says, "Oh, there's a gap in the resume." Then you keep digging deeper there because we have found as if somebody has developed a horn because of that one fault that you consider fault. It may not even be, right? So that hello and horn effect is very difficult to manage, but we have to make sure that we are just being more objective about the person sitting in front of us. Um, I saw a 14-year-old cricketer, you all know the name, Vaibhav Suryavanshi, and I was watching his interview after he hit the century. Okay, and amazing maturity at age 14. The commentator asked him that you are so young. How do you play the international bowlers and such big names? And doesn't it worry you? You hit a sixer to anybody? His answer was a learning for all of us. He said very politely, huh? It was Ravi Shastri asking that question. And this boy looks down and very politely said, Sir, this is Hindi, which I will translate for all of you later who don't understand Hindi. He says, Sir, मैं नाम देख के नहीं खेलता, मैं बॉल देख के खेलता हूँ. I don't look at the name of the bowler, I look at the ball that is coming my way. And that's how I choose my shot. Isn't that amazing? Zero bias. Doesn't matter if it is, who is bowling, he doesn't see. He says, I look at the ball, and that's what we need to do. We don't need to look at if the bowler is somebody from, every day that we meet or somebody really big, but look at the ball and play. And that's what keeps us bias free. Very, very objective. The third one is called primacy or recency effect, which we just saw in Susan Boyle's case. See, when initially people say something wrong or we don't like their body language, I asked you a question, right? That when you enter the interview, what is the first thing you notice? That first thing we notice is important. First impressions are important. But as an interviewer, don't give them so much importance that you will be a victim of primacy bias. Maybe the interviewer, there are a lot of people I feel, and I want to know from all of you, Randa, Ekta, all others. I really want to understand that how many of you decide in the first 10 to 15 minutes whether the person has the chance of getting in or out? होता है कभी कभी, do you do that?
Yes, it happens.
No?
Yes.
Probably we don't decide, but definitely it affects
It
the
affects.
impression.
We
Yeah,
continue with the interview for some time more, but in our mind we have somewhat decided how where is directing to.
absolutely. So my suggestion or request would be that just make observations. Don't take one thing at a time. Okay,
Mhm.
because this would be a primacy effect, and we also don't know the interview is a comparing process, na? So there may be another candidate, and then finally you will decide, because we always say that when the resumes come to us and you reject a few resumes, that's where your rejection stops. Now the remaining resumes is a part of selection process, which is positive. All the resumes that say, okay, fine, you can interview them, are our possible fits. So, till we have seen two or three at least, we cannot say, oh no, I don't want this person. We have not yet seen the others. Na? So, let's not become the victims of primacy effect. So, the beginning of the interview, if the person fumbles, you don't like the first two answers, you don't like the way the person is sitting, what they are wearing, just hold on, make an observation, but don't make a decision. Similarly, we sometimes happens to be the case where a person you feel, oh no, not happening, not happening, or maybe you feel that, yeah, it's normal, let me not make a decision. And suddenly, the last 5 minutes of the interview, they sound like such a bright spark. They're such a beautiful, conversation. And we feel, wow, the person was good. But then we again need to go back that if it was the 10th question that was answered beautifully, how about the first nine? So neither primacy nor recency should become a decision maker. We have to make an observation on everything that we ask and keep writing some records so that eventually you are able to compare the candidates better. Okay, so primacy and recency is another cognitive bias that we have. Similar to me is a common one. People who dress like us, look like cricket, like football, people who have similar hobbies, people who come from my hometown, speak the same language. Lot of similarity, na? People who like the same restaurant that I go to. Anything can drive that. Alumni from the college, my company, this is where I started my career. But then the moment that happens, you start, it's also called a mirror effect. So somewhere you start seeing yourself in that person, and maybe we may not notice some dangerous signals there. We may not see that the person is not at 4 and 5. Yeah. So we have to be very careful of this particular bias, very commonly found. Stereotypes. I want you to give me examples of stereotypes. What stereotypes do we find? I- Yes, Randa?
Yes, this lady who is a candidate for medical representative position,
Mm,
she wouldn't be um, suitable for this position because
mm.
all women couldn't bear sales position jobs. So this is one
Absolutely.
of the stereotyping.
Big stereotype. I can't agree with you more. Randa, I'm one of those few women certified sales trainer. But even today, some people ask me, my sales team is very energetic. Do you think you can manage training them? I said, what is that got to do with a training session, right? But yes, there are stereotypes, and you always associate sales with some kind of big boisterous energy, but it's all here, correct? So I
Of
completely
course.
agree with you. So, okay, more stereotype examples. What
Example,
is
sometimes we understand that the person is an introvert during an interview, right? And how are you going to handle, difficult stakeholders when you have to go all out with them and have a difficult conversations with them?
so true, Tushar? People always feel introverts cannot manage difficult situation. They are shy. They cannot make leaders. But actually, those are the ones, they are very self-sufficient people. Their entire energy comes from within. They're confident. They observe a lot more because they don't talk a lot many times. But people don't see the power. Big stereotype. Any other examples? Anybody?
Also, we've seen, especially when we do, hiring for especially women rights and all, right? We said that we
Hmm.
want to drive it as a special drive for women's, but we don't back it up with our thought process that we will have to have, obviously, they cannot work late nights, right? They will have responsibility of kids. They will not be able to perform their duties, right? They will not be able to come to office on times, or probably not able to do 5 days working from office. All these thought process is again a stereotype for me.
Absolutely. I think that's what actually probably made a law, right? But not to ask a woman if she's getting married. They don't say, "Oh, will you plan a child in next 2 years?" We are lawfully not allowed to do that now. But at least in India, there was a time when people were asking those kind of questions. And nobody asked a man if the man was planning to have a child because nobody expected the man to take responsibility. Today, that is changing too, right? You have enough fathers
Yeah,
taking,
absolutely. In fact,
yeah.
the kind of environment we are living, in fact, I've seen you know, father is taking more responsibilities where they are playing more roles, right? Which is hindering them to perform their duties on work, right? So it is
Correct.
going to be an equal opportunity. It's equal for both of them, I would say, not anybody specific. But yes, but as a panelist, you've seen you're judging only to the women, which is not correct.
Unfortunately, there is a Harvard research that also says that women have to prove themselves 3 times more than a man. Now, how they come up with such numerical proofs? Maybe there are, surveys and statistical analysis. But overall, we have to understand that stereotypes do affect, but all sorts of biases, not just hiring, but in the entire human resource cycle, recruitment, development, promotions, you will see biases coming in, all sorts of biases. So I want all of you to think and um, write in the chat box, unmute if you want to. How do you think biases affect not just recruitment, but also development and promotion? Take 2 minutes to think if you want to.
Okay. Before we go, I just have a question, Linda.
Hmm.
You know, I want to understand if this is going to be again a stereotype base because when I used to do hiring for my organization IBM Dux days, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
usually for BPO, and BPO is a purely a calling process where you're just helping the customer service, right? Technical,
Right.
non-technical kind of process. And we've seen mostly, engineering graduates, right?
Hmm.
Those are not getting jobs in their domain or industry. They end up getting a jobs in the BPO. And there are both side of stories. They've made successful career in BPO, and there are people those who have not been sticking around in these organizations, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Now, when as a panelist, right, they have done their studies that the attrition ratio for BE Tech is quite high, right? And
Attrition
while
ratio for
BE Tech for engineer graduates is very high,
BBTech,
right?
huh?
Right, is very high, and they outright you can't say that they will not be appearing for the interview, but when the interview comes, that why are you showcasing such profiles, right? We know that these guys are not going to stick around. Whereas it is the both side stories. There are
Hmm.
people, those are engineering, are managers, and the BPOs are team leaders, right? And there are those who are not stick. So, what would this be, and how should this be treated or rectify as an approach?
I think it should not become a stereotype. Yeah. But if you have seen it happening again and again, maybe, it's good to do a survey, maybe do some interviews and decide what is it that they would like to have, why they're not feeling satisfied in the job. And then probably your decision will be made based on data. Because see, every job you will find some people stick and some people do not work. But do you feel that there is any baseline to say this, that B and B Tech people do not stick around in these BPO managerial jobs?
No, I think if if we even into deep dive into data, could be that if you're hiring for the for non-tech, I can understand because that does not give them the kind of kick, right?
Hmm.
The kind of expectation they have come with the role. But I think for a technical or a semi-tech role, they should still be.
Hmm. Yeah, because see, many times what happens with BE and B Tech and a lot of other industries are also complaining of this, that after a year or two, they go for MBA. So
Right.
it's not just this industry, but in many industries, their longevity has been in question. They
Yeah.
may come back after they finish the MBA, but they will go after 1 or 2 years, many of them. I want to also hear from Nihal and Randa, since you both are in Egypt, and we would also like to hear a different viewpoint. Have you seen any typical stereotypes, or how is the behavior of certain professionals?
Definitely, yes. Beside
Mhm.
the gender stereotype that you were talking about, you and the colleagues, also the generational stereotyping is now coming up to the
Yeah.
workplace. Definitely with the Gen Z and how they are, sometimes there are some biases that maybe they are tech savvy, or maybe they are very fast to get promotions, or there is some impressions that they are not good at work in the beginning, but if you are objective enough, we find some very good cases related to that. So this is
Absolutely.
also one of the biases coming up in Egypt nowadays.
Hmm. So it's very important to be aware. See, the first step to removing bias from our mind is to be aware of it. Many times, we are not aware at all. So may I ask all of you as to the list of biases that we just saw here? Do you think you have probably been biased one of these? If you don't mind sharing.
Virinda, this is actually a good question because the majority of the time our biases are unconscious biases.
Yeah,
So it happens in seconds, and you are not even aware that this could be possible. So and I remember one time I was actually delivering the training of the unconscious biases and the how to recognize the unconscious bias. And after that, I was unconsciously biased. So you cannot actually learn how to control it, but you can learn how to pause and think if this is an objective, let me say, objective decision, where it's an unconscious bias based decision. Um,
absolutely.
so this is one of the reflections when you ask this question, because definitely we have been doing that without being conscious.
Yeah. Most interviewers, Nihal, are definitely colored a bit by primacy bias, I would say. The first 10 minutes is a very common way to decide 90%. Ikta, you want to say
And
something?
also the
Same,
similar to
Similar.
me effect.
Similar.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Ekta?
same for me also. I think the third one, primacy, is something which I get influenced a lot, and then sometime I realize it, and I change my decision, and sometime I get stuck with the first part or the later part. So that starts happen, or the second one also. One bad response which I was expecting, I it
Hmm.
become a deal breaker for me. It happened a lot. So for
There is.
such cases, I discuss the case later on with someone and then take a call. But at
Hmm.
that moment, I make my mind. So it happens with me.
True. There is one more bias which is not written here, but I have heard it when I do these 2 days programs, now where we do the whole BI interview. Sometimes people, they say, I ask them, what is your interviewing style? And I have sometimes heard this answer. It bothers me actually. It's not a right answer. Sometimes people tell me that, Vrinda, I ask the person, I keep asking till I get to hear what I want to hear. I think it's something called a confirmation bias. You have already decided a particular thing and you are asking questions to hear what you want to hear. So our mind is not open. Am I making sense? You
Yes,
may want to hear, but is it based on what are those five best behaviors for that competency, or is it just your experience? So, Ekta, Nihal, and all of you, remember that one of the ways to beat these biases is to have a very clear process. And that is why we always promote BEI and something called ORCE. So, ORCE way of evaluation also says just observe. Wait, do not jump the gun and say, oh, this person I want in, this person I want out. There are four stages that we all must look at and then decide. Also, there are different rounds of the interview. So, write the records for the next round. Maybe write a red flag. Say, I like these three competencies are definitely showcased in the answers, but about the attitude, a little bit of, I know it all came up once or twice. Please check it. So you should write red flags also. So let's look at the ORC method. One thing we forgot to discuss before ORC. Do you think the stereotype and biases continue through development and promotions also?
Yes. Yes,
Huh?
yes. Yeah. Yes.
Definitely yes.
So we have to be very particular that hiring is the only the first stage, but throughout the employee cycle, how do we make it more process driven, more solid records? And that's why also equal opportunity, equity, all these things that we keep talking about, sustainability goals, equality, but that has to continue as a thought for all HR processes, not just hiring, right?